make secondary RE really come alive for your class. While here on Resource Review, we're looking at 3 resources that might help. A booklet of religious conversations, a video pack about Christianity, and a very short version of the Bible. Find out what our expert panel think here on Resource Review. Recommending today's resources for secondary RE is our subject expert, Dr. Sarah Smalley, Chair of the Association for RE Advisors, Inspectors and Consultants. Also joining us we have Ray Barker, Director of the British Educational Suppliers Association, and Alan Mills from the Specialist Schools and Academies Trust. Welcome to you all. So Sarah, let's start with the booklet Talking Together. Can you explain this resource to us and what makes it stand out for secondary RE?
Well, a couple of things. The first one is that it's a series of little plays, which is something I haven't seen in a school textbook for quite some time. However, it works well in this context. And the second is that a lot of secondary RE books are about an individual religion. This deals with all the religions young people are likely to study in Key Stage 3 all in one go.
Well, thank you very much. Now let's have a look at Talking Together in use in the classroom. We visited Capital City Academy in Willesden, London, where Naila Khan is taking a Year 7 class.
The book's called Talking Together. It's a new book, okay, and we're going to use it and see how much you understand about signs and symbols from this book. The main features of the book is actually the dialogue that these different pupils of different faiths and non-faiths actually have with each other to find out about the different signs and symbols within their religions and things that they don't actually understand about each other's religions. Now tell me, how do we know that that star is for Judaism? I gave each pupil a role to play and they read it out, and I stopped and started the lesson to explain the different symbols that were coming up and the different terminologies, religious terminology being very important in lessons.
Do you have to wind up your turban every day? Why doesn't your brother wear a turban? He has his hair plaited or up in a knot with a handkerchief tied over it.
It's very difficult the way it's actually set out to use in a lesson. You're slightly limited in what you can do with it, but it does work in the sense of if you do it as part of a dialogue and the pupils taking part and reading it, that works quite well. I think it's value for money for primary school pupils. They could use it a lot better in that sense. For secondary school, it's a little bit more difficult. Year 7 mixed ability classes, it's good for, but higher up, I think it's a little bit basic. Good use of religious terminology, but other than that, I would find it difficult higher up in the school.
Well, Sarah, the teacher positive about this resource, but there's one issue maybe about who it's best aimed for. And which age group do you see it most suitable for?
Yes, she said she thought it was a bit basic for older Key Stage 3 pupils, and I'd agree. What I think it would be ideal for was the very beginning of Key Stage 3, when pupils were coming into Year 7. It's the kind of resource that could draw together and refer back to everything they'd learnt in primary schools and allow the teacher to make a judgment about where they were at in terms of RE knowledge and then take them on.
Ray, what are your thoughts about Talking Together?
I like very much the idea of getting kids to talk about the big issues, and I think that's what this is aiming to do. And as you say, it gives them that stimulus, it gives them the little playlets, it gives them the topics, it gives them the information. So I think on that level it's a very useful resource for that lower Key Stage 3. My issue, I think, is probably picked up by the teacher, is that I think they try and cram too much on the page, and it's almost as if it could have been twice as big or 2 different books, really.
Would you agree, Alan? Is it a bit too densely packed?
I think it is. I mean, it did look that way. RE books do suffer from this. They try to cram so much in, and very often the illustrations or the pictures are good, but they're not the right size. They're not necessarily always appropriate. It's just trying to get too much in, question of value for money.
Well, thank you all very much. Now let's move on to Sarah's second choice of resource for secondary RE, and it's a pack this time, Curriculum Bites for Religious Education. Sarah, can you explain the pack to us and why you think it stands out?
There are two large compilations of video material, one for Key Stage 3 and one for Key Stage 4. They're very wide-ranging. It's got wonderful support materials in this teacher's file, so all the work's done for you, really. There are programme summaries for discussion, there are enormous numbers of follow-up suggestions with case study material, quotations for students to look at and agree or disagree with, questionnaires and so on. So really a great deal in these packs, and the main purpose of it is to challenge, both to challenge pupils in what they're thinking about and to challenge the religions themselves that they're studying.
Thanks, it sounds a very interesting resource, and to see it in action we gave it to youth leader Chris Rogers, and he put it through its paces with a group in Harrow.
The resource that we were using today is an RE resource which is to be used in secondary schools. It's mainly to be used in the classroom and to try and stimulate some conversation. And what's quite interesting about it is they come at Christianity and other faiths in a way that is quite vibrant and quite different. What I really quite like about this resource is every episode there's something a little bit different about it. And in one episode you've got two kids arguing over a video game. The next episode you've got a guy talking about how they advertise Jesus at Christmas and Easter. The next episode is a cartoon.
If we had to market him in some way, would you say it's best to market him as a film or as a new car?
I'd say if we were trying to market him today, we could put him on like a chat show or something like that.
In the session that we were just having now, we watched a particular episode of Jesus and how the church need to advertise him, and how would the church advertise him. And in the lesson we just watched the 15-minute clip, and then we just had a discussion. What did you make of that advert? The concept of having kind of South Park Jesus, what was it, Jedi Jesus and James Bond Jesus.
For a few people who would look at like say, oh, I watch South Park, or there's Jesus, or I watch Star Wars, something like that. But I don't think it'd really reach out to that many people.
I don't think it'd be like a let's grab all the people to come to church, but it would be an attention grabber.
I struggle to see how you could use it with a classroom the size of 30 kids and get a good debate going along. My concern with the video would be that at some points it comes at the issues too simply. And it's very simplistic in the way that it looks at prayer, very simplistic at the way it looks at Jesus and miracles.
In order for people to stand up and take notice, especially when there's so many other things on offer out there. If we're going to market Jesus, where do we start?
I think for secondary schools, kids will engage with it. And it is a little cheesy at points, but it's not as cheesy as videos were when I was a kid.
Let's go, let's go!
Well, Sarah, we trialled the resource with a youth group. How do you think it would work in schools?
There's a wealth of activities in the file which give you a chance for students to work individually or in pairs, small groups, whole class discussions. So all the material is there to support a teacher wanting to take what's on the video and make it their own in the classroom.
Right, OK. Alan, come to you first this time. What do you think about this resource?
Well, the word cheesy was used quite a lot, and I think that actually fits quite well. I mean, I think it would serve a very good purpose. I do believe in a classroom of teenagers it would work very well. It would stimulate discussion. But you've got to be, I think the teacher would have to be very aware of that element of it. Otherwise you could come over looking very trite or very trendy, and I think that's part of the problem. The attempt to make it all fit into the modern world actually very often fails. I'm not saying that did, but the teacher's got to use it properly, otherwise you end up defeating your own objects.
Do the teachers, are they given guidance, are they given help in order to get the best out of this resource?
Yes, they are, and I think we might be a bit unfair on the resource if we judged it just on the bit that we saw in use there, because it's very wide-ranging, and though the idea of marketing Jesus might seem a bit cheesy, I'd agree with that. There are huge numbers of other aspects, issues, approaches and so on, which I think a lot of teachers could make superb use of.
Okay. Ray, what are your thoughts?
I can't see it's cheesy at all, really. I mean, I quite like the idea of talking about those big issues again, and
it does challenge some issues, doesn't it?
What were the big issues on that particular?
Well, it's
program?
about what Jesus really is about, and if you look very carefully at how the video has been structured, the person on the film just showed it all the way through, and actually it's not supposed to happen like that as far as I can see. There are little tiny segments of it which are designed so teachers can use that in a variety of different ways, and the idea of stopping, talking, doing something, I mean, it's all there, it's all in the teacher's pack as well. I think it's unfair.
Well, thank you all very much. Now let's move on to the third resource, which is the 100-Minute Bible. So, self-explanatory perhaps, but tell us more about this resource, Sarah.
Thank you. Well, it's a bit unusual because this resource isn't designed specifically for use in schools. However, it could perform a very useful function in secondary schools for both pupils and for teachers. An enormous number of people, perhaps the majority in Britain today, don't know what's in the Bible, or they know odd bits here and there. They've heard a few stories from the Old Testament. They know a little of the story of the birth and death and resurrection of Jesus as they're told in the Bible, but they don't have an overview. And this book, as it says, can be read in 100 minutes. I read it in 80 on a train journey, and it draws the whole thing together. It's a very valuable resource, I think, for busy teachers.
What about on this side of the panel? Do you see it as something useful for schools? Alan, you're nodding.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the value of RE is that it can maintain an interest in stories which are absolutely intrinsic to what's been going on in culture in this country and others. And I think anything new like that, it's the wonder of RE, you can actually introduce something new, you can demonstrate something, and you can use it in an appropriate way. And as you say, 22 pages for the Old Testament, get through the basic features, and you're doing a service to every other subject on the curriculum, which needs to know those stories. I mean, the language is a bit of a problem. I don't think it's wonderful,
Alan, it's just
but
dull.
the stories are the bit we're talking about.
So would you, Ray, have liked to have seen this but with a different style of language?
Yeah, maybe a 120-minute Bible or something. But I mean, I think what it does is it kills the stories. I fail to see the reason why you would go to that to find out the story, because it appears in about 10 lines and it just tells you the most basic facts. It would turn me off all the stories, really.
Sarah, is it too basic?
No, I don't think it is. It's not going to inspire anybody through the beauty of the telling, but it is going to give people an overview of what's in the Bible. I think that's its value. So, as you were saying, if you were thinking from an art point of view or a literature point of view, knowing what some of the references were to Bible stories, it's perfect for that. Yes.
Great. Well, I'm sorry, that's all we've got time for. We've run out of minutes. But just to recap, the 3 resources that we looked at for secondary RE were Talking Together booklet from John Hunt Publishing, Curriculum Bites Series 1 video pack published by RE Today Services, and finally the 100-Minute Bible published by 100-Minute Press. For more information about all of the resources that we've discussed here today for secondary RE, and to post your own comments about other resources, go to our website. It's teachers.tv/resource review. If you want to, you can email us. We're at resourcereview@teachers.tv. So a big thank you to our panel, to Sarah, to Ray and to Alan. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Resource Review. Bye-bye.